The melody of the stars, nestled deep within a secluded valley, cradled by towering ancient mountains that whispered forgotten secrets to the wind, rested a little-known village called Starlight Hollow. The place seemed carved from a dream, its cottages made of pale, silvery wood that shimmered faintly under the moonlight, with rooftops shaped like curled leaves, designed to catch falling stardust when the sky wept light. The air always smelled of lavender and pine, and the stone paths that wound through the village sparkled faintly at night, as if dusted with magic. Birds rarely chirped here after sunset, but no one missed them, for the true symphony of Starlight Hollow came not from the earth, but from above. Each midnight, without fail, a gentle melody would float down from the mountaintops, wrapping the village in a cocoon of sound so delicate it seemed woven from moonbeams. The tune didn't come from any instrument the villagers knew. It was not played, it simply existed, arriving as if carried by the stars themselves. Like soft silver wind chimes stirred by invisible hands, or lullabies whispered by clouds, the melody drifted into every window and heart. Children would curl under their quilts, eyes wide with wonder, drifting into dreams filled with light. The elderly would sit in wooden rocking chairs, faces lit with peaceful smiles, the tune stirring memories of love, laughter, and days long gone. Some claimed the mountains were alive. Others believed the stars were singing just for them. A few whispered stories of ancient beings who protected the sky and sent music to those still willing to listen. But as the years turned and seasons changed, the village changed too. New worries arrived. Tools broke, markets grew, fields demanded attention. People rose earlier, worked harder, and fell asleep sooner. One by one, they stopped waiting for midnight. The porches grew empty, windows closed tight. The melody still came. It was still just as beautiful. But fewer ears waited for it, fewer hearts felt it. And slowly, without anyone truly noticing, the dreams began to fade. In a quiet house at the edge of Starlight Hollow, where the woods began to thicken and the wildflowers grew tallest, lived a boy named Leo. While many in the village hurried through their days with eyes fixed on the ground, Leo walked with his head tilted toward the sky. He counted clouds, named the stars, and traced shapes in the constellations, imagining stories hidden within them. He had a habit of lingering at doorways, listening, wondering if someone, somewhere, might still be playing that midnight melody. Leo's hair was wild, always messy from the wind, and his eyes held a certain brightness that couldn't be dimmed no matter how many times adults told him to grow up. He saw magic in places where others saw only routine. He was the kind of boy who would stop to watch a spider weave its web or listen to the breeze rustle the leaves. He believed the world always had something to say, if only people listened. At night, while the village slept, Leo would sit by his grandmother's side and ask her the same question over and over. "Do the stars really sing, Grandma Nora?" His grandmother, Nora, had hair as white as snow that fell down her back like a silver waterfall. Her voice was soft, warm, with a hint of something older, like she carried secrets from another time. She would smile, tuck a blanket around Leo's shoulders, and whisper, "Of course they do, my dear. The stars have always sung, but only dreamers can hear them." Leo's grandmother spoke of a time when everyone in Starlight Hollow listened for the midnight song, back when children weren't afraid to wish upon falling stars and adults still found joy in building castles in the clouds. She told tales of magical beings, guardians of the sky, who played music no human could ever touch, but all could feel. Most adults in the village dismissed Nora's stories as fairy tales, bedtime stories meant for little ones. "It's just the wind," they would say, or maybe an echo from the hills. But Leo believed. He believed with every piece of his heart. His friends would sometimes tease him. "They're not real, you know," a boy once said, kicking a rock. "It's just your grandma's imagination." But Leo would shrug with a grin. "Maybe," he replied. Then he'd look up at the sky, eyes shining, and whisper to himself, "Or maybe they're wrong." Even though Leo's world was full of color, there was a quiet sadness there too. He noticed how many people in the village had stopped telling stories, how they stopped looking up at night. Shopkeepers seemed to rush home without even glancing at the sky. Parents pulled their children inside long before the stars appeared, missing the moment when the first note of the melody kissed the air. Leo couldn't understand how they didn't feel it anymore, How could people forget something so magical? Some nights, when everyone else slept, Leo would tiptoe to his window, push it open, and sit on the ledge with a blanket wrapped around him. He would close his eyes exactly at midnight and wait. Even when the melody was faint, he heard it. It hummed softly in the silence, like the sound of a faraway friend calling from the mountaintops. And every night, as he fell asleep to the gentle song, Leo would promise himself something. One day I'm going to find where that music comes from. Spring crept quietly into Starlight Hollow. The air grew softer, and the blossoms that had hidden all winter began to bloom beneath Leo's window. Birds returned to the trees with new songs, but none could compare to the melody that still called from the mountains each night. One morning, Leo awoke before dawn. A strange sound had stirred him, not the melody, but something else. It was faint, almost like laughter carried on the breeze, but it wasn't human. It was delicate, fluttering, like wind through wind chimes or leaves whispering secrets to each other. He slipped from his bed, careful not to wake Grandma Nora, and tiptoed into the forest behind his home. The woods were still silver with morning mist, and the trees stood like quiet guardians. Every now and then, he thought he saw something flicker in the corner of his eye, a shimmer, a glow, but whenever he turned his head, it vanished. Leo followed the sound deeper into the woods until he reached a clearing he had never seen before. In the center stood an enormous tree, unlike any in the valley. Its bark shimmered faintly like moonlight, and its roots twisted into strange patterns on the ground, like symbols from an ancient language. Its leaves, though full, never rustled. Beneath the tree sat a small figure, no taller than Leo's knee. It had wings like crystal petals and eyes as deep and shifting as the night sky. It was neither boy nor girl, neither old nor young. It just was. Leo froze. The creature looked up and smiled. "You heard it, didn't you?" it asked, its voice like the echo of a lullaby. Leo nodded, heart thudding in his chest. "The music?" The creature nodded slowly. "Only a few still do." Leo wanted to ask so many things. What was it? Where did it come from? Why could so few hear it now? But he couldn't speak. The forest around them felt like it was holding its breath. The creature stepped closer and placed a hand over Leo's chest. "The world forgets, but your heart remembers. That's why you were called." "Called?" Leo whispered. The figure looked toward the distant peaks beyond the valley. "The melody is fading. The guardians can no longer play it alone. They need someone to remember, someone to believe." Suddenly, the light around them shifted. The sun was rising, and with its golden touch, the clearing began to fade. The tree blurred at the edges, the symbols in the earth vanished, and the creature's wings turned to mist. Leo reached out, but the figure only smiled. "Tonight," it said, "when the stars begin to hum, follow the path of the fireflies. They will show you the way." And with that, it disappeared. Leo stood alone in the clearing that now looked like any other patch of forest. The magical tree was gone, replaced by an ordinary oak, but something deep inside him had changed. He knew now that the melody was more than music. It was a message, a call, a promise, and he was ready to answer it. That night, the sky was clearer than Leo had ever seen. Every star above Starlight Hollow shimmered like it was holding a secret. The mountains stood tall and dark, outlined in silver. Midnight approached. Leo waited at his window, wrapped in his grandfather's old wool cloak. He had told no one what had happened in the clearing, not even Grandma Nora. Some things, he felt, were meant to stay sacred until the right moment. And then, just as the village clock chimed 12, the melody returned. It was stronger now, no longer just a whisper in the air, but something that wrapped around Leo like a warm breeze. It seemed to hum directly into his chest, resonating with something ancient inside him. Then, from the edge of the woods, the fireflies appeared. At first, only a few blinked in the darkness. But soon, dozens emerged, glowing in patterns, dancing in spirals. They moved with purpose, tracing a path between the trees. Leo stepped into the night, heart steady, feet silent. The fireflies waited until he followed, then drifted deeper into the woods like a living ribbon of light. The forest had changed. Where before there were shadows and silence, now there was music in the leaves and a soft golden glow beneath every step. Flowers that only bloomed in moonlight unfolded as he passed, and animals peeked from behind trees, not afraid, but curious. After walking for what felt like both minutes and hours, The fireflies led Leo to a steep hill he had never noticed before. At its summit stood a stone arch covered in vines and glowing moss. Symbols, faintly familiar from the dreamlike tree in the clearing, circled its edge. The melody was louder here. It poured from the archway like a waterfall made of sound. And in the center of the arch hovered something extraordinary, a floating crystal, turning slowly in midair, pulsing with gentle light. Leo stepped closer. The fireflies stopped and circled him, their glow now forming a protective halo. As he reached out to touch the crystal, he heard voices, not with his ears, but somewhere deeper. You are the first in many seasons. The last melody is waning. Will you carry it? Leo swallowed hard. He didn't know what it meant to carry the melody, but he nodded. Something deep in his soul whispered that this was what he had been born to do. The moment his fingers touched the crystal, the world changed. A burst of starlight surrounded him. The forest disappeared, the arch vanished, and Leo found himself standing on a vast, shimmering bridge of light, stretching between stars, far above the world. In the distance, tall figures made of moonlight awaited him, neither human nor spirit, but something older than both. Leo took a breath and stepped forward, the melody now glowing inside him, no longer just heard, but remembered. The journey had only just begun. The bridge beneath Leo's feet shimmered like glass soaked in moonlight. With each step, notes from the melody echoed upward, as if the stars themselves were responding. Ahead, the tall beings of light waited in stillness. Their forms flickered gently, like candle flames inside crystal, and their eyes held galaxies, old, patient, and wise. Leo approached, his heart racing with both awe and uncertainty. One of the figures stepped forward. Unlike the others, its glow pulsed in harmony with the crystal Leo still held, as if they were bound by the same music. "You have touched the heartstone," the figure said, its voice both a whisper and a chorus. "That means you have heard the last lullaby." Leo didn't know how to answer, but he nodded slowly. The figure tilted its head. "Long ago," it continued, "this song flowed freely across the earth. Every creature, every mountain, every leaf was part of the harmony. But as the world grew noisy, the music faded. Fewer could hear it. Fewer still remembered it." The others formed a circle around Leo. They began to hum, their voices blending into chords that wrapped around the bridge like silk. The melody inside him responded. Without knowing how, Leo joined them. A single note left his lips, and it was right, pure, ancient. The lead figure raised a hand, and a ripple passed through the light. "You have been chosen not because you are perfect, but because you listened," it said. "And now we will show you what remains of the song." The bridge shifted beneath them. Images emerged from the light, glimpses of forests long gone, rivers that once sang, and skies where birds carried music across continents. Then came images of silence, cities where noise drowned out wonder, hearts too hurried to feel. Leo's eyes filled with tears. He understood without words that the melody wasn't just music. It was memory, connection, life. "There is still time," the figure said gently, "but the song must be rekindled, carried by those who remember how to listen." Leo looked down at the heartstone. Its glow was no longer separate from him. It had become a part of his chest, softly pulsing in rhythm with his breath. "Will I be alone?" he asked, finally finding his voice. A pause. "No," said the figure. "Others will come. Some already feel the call. Your song will awaken theirs, and together, harmony can return." Leo closed his eyes. For the first time, he saw Starlight Hollow from above, its tiny houses, its quiet streets, and the villagers who had once listened under the stars. He knew now that his task was not to change the world with noise, but to awaken the silence that had always been waiting. When he opened his eyes again, the bridge was fading, and the stars began to drift away. "You will not remember everything," the guardian warned, "but your heart will." And with that, Leo was falling gently through the sky, wrapped in the final notes of the ancient song, returning home not just with knowledge, but with purpose. Leo awoke in the grass beneath the old oak tree, the light of the first morning sun filtering through its branches. For a moment, everything felt like a dream, the melodies still lingering in his chest, a soft hum that only he could hear. He sat up, looking around at the quiet village, now bathed in the warmth of dawn. Starlight Hollow hadn't changed. The same humble homes, the same winding paths, and the same people, busy with their daily routines, unaware of the profound shift that had just occurred. Yet Leo knew that everything had changed for him. He stood up, feeling the weight of the heartstone still pulsing softly in his chest, a connection to the melody that was now his to carry. He walked down the familiar path toward the village center, where the market stalls would soon open. The villagers greeted him with nods and smiles, but Leo noticed something different in their eyes today. A quiet yearning, as if they too could feel the stirrings of something long forgotten. As he passed the bakery, Mrs. Marsh, the elderly woman who always hummed softly as she worked, caught his eye. Her eyes widened, a spark of recognition flickering within her. "Leo," she said softly, "there's something in the air today. Have you noticed? It feels like something is returning." Leo smiled and nodded. "I have noticed it. Something is stirring, Mrs. Marsh." He didn't explain further. There was no need. It was as though the song had already begun to weave its threads into the fabric of Starlight Hollow. He felt it, and so did she. That evening, Leo stood on his porch, gazing at the mountains that cradled the village. The sky was clearer than it had been in years, the stars shining with a brilliance that seemed almost too bright. He could hear it now, the distant melody that had once been a mystery. It wasn't just from the mountaintops anymore. It was in the wind, in the rustling of the leaves, in the soft murmur of the river below. The song was alive again. As he listened, Leo could see the faces of the villagers in his mind. Each one was on their own journey, but their hearts were slowly being pulled into the same rhythm. It would take time for the song to return fully to their lives. But for the first time in a long while, he could see hope in their eyes. Hope that had been buried under years of busyness and silence. That night, Leo sat on his porch, his fingers lightly touching the heartstone around his neck. He began to hum softly, just as Mrs. Marsh had always done. The sound of his voice blended with the night air, carrying the notes of the ancient lullaby across the valley. One by one, the villagers gathered on their porches, drawn by the melody. At first, they stood in silence, unsure of what was happening. But then, slowly, they began to join in. At first, a few voices, then more, until the entire village was singing together. Some of the voices were uncertain, others shaky, but they were all united in the melody, bound together by something greater than themselves. Leo smiled, his heart swelling with warmth. The song was not just about bringing back memories. It was about rekindling connections between people, between the earth, and between the stars. As the night stretched on, Leo felt a deep peace settle within him. He had found his purpose. The song was his to carry, but it was also theirs to remember. And as the stars shimmered above, Leo knew that Starlight Hollow would never be the same again. Not because of any grand change, but because something as simple as a song had awakened the heart of the village. And in the stillness of the night, he could hear the stars singing too. The weeks that followed were a blur of quiet transformation. Starlight Hollow, once a place where the hum of everyday life drowned out all else, was now a village in harmony with itself and the universe. The melody, once distant and soft, had become an ever-present companion, flowing through the village like a river of light, gently guiding its people. Leo continued to walk among the villagers, listening to the sounds of their lives intertwined with the song. Children played in the streets, their laughter carrying the notes of the lullaby, while the elders sat in the sun, reminiscing in low voices as if remembering a dream they had long ago forgotten. Even the animals seemed to sense the change, their movements more graceful, their eyes brighter as if they too were awakening. But it was not just the village that had begun to change. As Leo moved through the hollow, he began to notice subtle shifts in the land itself. The flowers bloomed with new vibrancy, their petals brighter than he had ever seen. The trees stood taller, their leaves rustling in ways that seemed to echo the melody. Even the river, which had always flowed steadily, now seemed to sing as it wound through the valley, its waters shimmering under the moonlight. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Leo stood on the edge of the village, gazing at the horizon. The song was stronger now, a powerful force that thrummed in his chest. It was as though the very earth itself was breathing in time with the melody, a rhythm that was old and eternal, woven into the fabric of life. It was then that Leo saw something he had not expected. a group of travelers, standing at the foot of the mountain path that led to the village. They were not from Starlight Hollow. Their clothes were different, and their faces unfamiliar. But there was something in their eyes that made Leo pause, a quiet recognition, as if they too had heard the song. The travelers made their way into the village, drawn by the same melody that had awakened Leo. As they passed through the streets, the villagers watched them with a mix of curiosity and wonder. The travelers were not afraid. They seemed to know why they had come, as if the song had called them home. That evening, as the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Leo invited the travelers to join him on his porch. They were an eclectic group, some young, others old, but all of them seemed to carry a quiet wisdom. As they sat together, the travelers shared their stories. They had been journeying for years, drawn by an unknown force, following the whispers of the melody that echoed in their dreams. "We have been searching," said one of the travelers, a woman with silver hair and eyes that shone like the moon. "We heard the song long ago, in distant lands, and it led us here." Leo listened intently, his heart swelling with understanding. The song was not just for Starlight Hollow. It was for the world. It was a thread that connected all people, all places, all things. And now, the travelers had arrived to help weave that thread even further. The village gathered that night beneath the sky, and together they sang. The travelers' voices blended seamlessly with the villagers' harmonies, creating a sound that was both ancient and new, a melody that stretched across the valley and beyond, touching hearts far and wide. Leo stood at the center, feeling the pulse of the song within him, his chest filled with the steady rhythm of the earth. He realized then that he had not just found his purpose, he had found his family, both those who had always been here and those who had come from far away, drawn by the same call. As the song soared into the night, a lightness filled the air. The stars above seemed to shimmer with approval, their glow brightening, as if they too were singing along. Leo closed his eyes, a smile on his face, knowing that the melody would never fade, for it was woven into the very heart of the world. As the days passed, the melody grew stronger. It was no longer just the villagers who heard it, but travelers from distant lands, wanderers seeking a song to heal their hearts. They arrived in Starlight Hollow as if drawn by an invisible thread, their eyes wide with wonder as they listened to the sound that filled the valley. Leo, now known as the keeper of the song, watched as the village transformed before his eyes. People came from all walks of life, each carrying their own burdens, their own desires, and yet all of them were united in their search for something they could not name. They found it in the music. The song that had first stirred Leo's heart had now woven its way into the very fabric of the world. The travelers brought with them tales of their journeys, of lands far and wide, where the melody had been heard faintly, like a whisper on the wind. They spoke of how the song had guided them, giving them strength during times of doubt, hope during moments of despair. Some said the song had saved them. Others claimed it had shown them the way when they were lost. But Leo knew the truth. There was no one who could claim ownership of the melody. It was a gift from the mountains, from the stars, from the earth itself, and now it belonged to everyone. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Leo stood on the highest point of Starlight Hollow, gazing at the valley below. The village, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, seemed to shimmer with a quiet energy. The song was playing again, louder now, its notes weaving through the trees and the sky, wrapping around everything in its path. The travelers had gathered once more, their voices joining in harmony. This time, there were no more strangers. The people of the village and the travelers were one, their hearts and souls united by the melody that had brought them together. Leo closed his eyes, feeling the music fill him from the inside out. It was no longer a mere sound. It had become a part of him, a force that transcended time and space. It was a language without words, a message carried on the winds, passed from one generation to the next. And then, in the stillness of the evening, something extraordinary happened. The stars above, once distant and cold, seemed to draw closer. They twinkled with a brilliance Leo had never seen before, each one pulsing in time with the song. The mountains, which had always stood silent and watchful, now hummed softly, their peaks glowing with a gentle light. For the first time, Leo understood. The song was not just a melody. It was the heartbeat of the universe itself. It was the sound of creation, the rhythm of life, the pulse that connected everything. The mountains, the stars, the rivers, the people, all were bound together by this ancient and eternal song. As the last notes of the melody echoed into the night, Leo looked around at the faces of his fellow villagers and the travelers who had come to share this moment. They were all smiling, their hearts full, their eyes shining with the knowledge that they were part of something much greater than themselves. And so, the song continued, never fading, never ending. It would echo through the ages, passed from one generation to the next, a reminder of the connection that binds all living things together. For as long as the stars shone in the sky and the mountains whispered in the wind, the song would live on. And Starlight Hollow, with its small houses and leaf-shaped roofs, would remain the place where the song began, forever singing, forever living, forever loved.